Welcome to Red Pill University. This is episode 206. Tonight's show is all about the light switch effect. I'm your host, Jody. I'm here with Mike tonight, who is breathing heavily into the mic.
Am I?
A little bit. So,
hot mic.
Yeah, a little bit. That's all right. So we're going to do a quick weekly recap here. So just kind of talk about what's been going on in the news. So for those of you who've been living under a rock, it's getting pretty crazy out there. So, stay safe. Portland had a shooting, Wisconsin's going nuts. Just saw tonight, Philly's got some issues. And then Chicago, if you're a cop, apparently they're going to start shooting on site. It is insane. So definitely stay safe. If you do decide to be politically public,
active,
if you got like a Trump hat or whatever, just don't go out alone. I guess it's sad that it's come down to this. You can't. People are assholes. On a scale of 1 to 10, people are stupid. Yeah.
I mean, this stuff is just escalating. Like, there's going to be folks on both sides that make dumb decisions, and the reality is there's a lot more safety in numbers. But as it relates to from like an RP standpoint, I think it's just it comes down to like protecting you and yours, really.
Yep. Yeah. Well, like I was saying before in the show prep, 2020 has been a really shitty year, but it's been great for memes.
Oh man.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. It's kind of a way. It's a release valve. It's gallows humor. It's a way of coping.
Yeah, dark humor is a thing for a reason. I think a lot of people turn to, and this is a big piece of frame that I don't want to dive into real deeply, but you gotta know when you're taking advantage of escapism for healthy purposes, just to get your mind reset and stuff like that, and then separately just not spending too much time with your head in the sand type of thing. So it's a tough piece.
Yep.
A lot of people are stuck between wanting to watch the news and not wanting to watch the news.
Yeah, there's a meme going around right now about remember when Walter Cronkite, all he did was reported the news, and then you got to make your own mind up about what to believe. And nowadays, it's you get the news and you got to decide if it even happened.
Yeah, it's not even just the difference of the information, but you got to sort through so much opinion. It's all opinion anymore on large media, and we try to. I mean, a lot of what we do is opinion, but we try to draw from references on notes that are put together from a lot of different guys' experiences. So this is meant to be, not, I don't want to say scientific with a capital S, but it's meant to be, an analytical structured approach to this.
It's more, it's an observation of I guess what's the word? Objective versus subjective reality. And we're going to talk about that tonight. Mm-hmm. So all the stuff that we talk about.
It's a really good segue. It's a really good segue.
And for those that don't know who we are, what we do, we talk about dating relationships from an objective perspective, combining millions of men's observations and experiences. That's it. So you can agree with whether our summaries or our theories are correct or not, but don't blame us. We're just the messengers. This is all the collected data of millions of men worldwide, cross culture. So I think we'll just kind of move on from there. Also, one last recap. Man, that Tesla stock and Apple are on fire this week. So ever since they announced that split, they've just been on a tear.
I have not checked the market this week. I like to just set it. And we talked about this on this past week. I like to set it and forget it when it comes to investing. And if you don't have a lot to invest, that's the way to do it. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of the ETF structure. Exchange traded funds, not necessarily index funds. Index, you do as good as the market. That's it. So I want to beat the market. And there's some people out there that know what the hell they're doing. And they're way better at it than I am. So I'll pay them that small commission fee and they can do it. Kathy Woods, ARK Invest, probably the best growth investor of our time.
Yeah, there's two ways to do it, right? It's just like if you lower your investment costs, you're going to beat the market. And then the other piece is if you got people who can actually, I don't want to say pick winners and losers because it's not speculating, but really evaluate businesses and markets well.
Yeah, and that's what she does. Her team is fantastic. They've been calling Tesla perfectly for 5 years. Everybody thought they were crazy. Nope, they know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's not just Tesla. Square's another good example. They are going to eat the big banks' lunch over the next 10 years.
You think so?
Yeah, they already are.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So they're getting big enough now. They're starting to take on Fannie and Freddie Mae in terms of loans.
Mm-hmm.
So they're underwriting their own shit for small businesses, medium businesses now too. So yeah, they've got fingers in different pies in the finance industry, and they're not the only ones doing this. Mm-hmm. Go watch ARK Invest's videos, their interviews with Cathie Woods and her analysts. They know their shit. I'm really happy that I went with them. Some of our other guys, I was talking about it before, and they invested. They're already up, I think, 10% in a week.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty good stuff.
Oh, one more thing happened this week that I want to touch on. It was a really good example, actually, of one of the things we talked about in a previous episode. Chadwick Boseman died.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And that guy, absolutely great actor. But the really interesting piece of his announcement of his passing away, sadly, is he struggled with colon cancer for 4 years and no one knew about it. And so the reason I want to draw this back to, some of the things we talk about is that's a big frame piece, right? Is everybody out today, something bad happens to them, they're trying to get, woke points or victim points, or they're trying to, have people at least, validate them and express solidarity and express compassion. He didn't do that, right? He didn't use his celebrity to point other people's attention at himself. I think that's really admirable from a frame standpoint, in my opinion, right? So, going back to what Joe said, that we'll call out our opinions as we have them. So this is clearly one of mine, but I think that is really indicative of a guy with a strong frame. He made incredible movies. He did so, going through a very troubling time personally and suffering from a disease that is really difficult. It resonated with me, because I had a death in the family recently from cancer, or due to cancer rather. And so I thought it was really interesting from a frame standpoint that he suffered from a disease for 4 years and nobody widely knew.
No one knew. Yeah.
No one knew. Incredible character.
Yep. All right. Well,
so with that,
like that, we're going to flip this over just like a switch.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Something more positive.
Let's do it.
All right. So the light switch effect. Let's go ahead and just quickly define it. It's the seemingly sudden flip from love and affection to complete disinterest. And I think almost every guy that's ever been in serious relationships has experienced this at one point or another. Mm-hmm. And all it is, and you know it when you see it. What are some examples that are characteristic of this?
Well, let's talk about what it is first, right? So the light switch effect is essentially women rewriting history, right? It doesn't matter what actually happened. It's kind of like you're putting things in the spin zone. Right.
Yeah.
It's reality distortion field.
There you go. So we have notes up here as well for the how and why. That's kind of what we're diving right into right now. The rewriting of history. Usually it's towards the end of the relationship when things have gone sideways. Maybe you've let yourself go. You get the idea. Maybe you've been overly needy. You're turning her off. She's getting just disinterested. And in some cases, it's nothing you did at all. It just can just happen. It can flip like a switch. No pun intended.
Yeah, there's two kind of scenarios where this happens, right? And I think I don't want to draw like a hard dichotomy on like this always happens in this situation, but the tendency of this to happen inside a relationship versus outside kind of paints a picture of two different reasons. One is that she's just not that into you, right? She's genuinely disinterested, and that naturally will cause her to just literally. I don't want to say forget because we'll get into the detail of this, but just for a placeholder word, let's use the word forget for now. She's just going to forget about all the interesting stuff, and that's just kind of a coping mechanism. If she's not interested, like I don't want to be tied to this guy that I no longer am into, so I'm just going to kind of forget about all the good stuff.
All right, and also we got to do our little spiel. So if you like this kind of content, please hit the subscribe button. Mash that notification bell and then hit the like button as well. That will help out with the YouTube algorithm. And I see we've got some comments queuing up. Please keep them coming. At the end of the show, we will just go top to bottom and start answering questions in the order they were asked. If you want to jump the queue, if you can't wait around, super chats are enabled. So a couple of bucks here or there, and we will address those immediately.
Yeah, or if you're one of the guys in the Discord, we have an online community called the Fraternity on Discord, and if you have questions there, definitely type them in. I got a separate screen up here that I can, hit the questions as they come up as well.
And I always forget to tell people about that. So we have a fraternal organization. It is a blend of college fraternity and a fraternal order, much like Freemasons. So if you would like to join us there, it's $5 a month. Go over to patreon.com/thefraternity. We will be having live events shortly once this pandemic's behind us. And we do monthly coaching, monthly live streams, watch parties. We have Q&As. We have feedback sessions. We'll get you guys going as far as building your goals, creating your mission, your purpose, all of it. And we got a whole team of mentors queued up, ready to go, helping guys out every single day. And if you just want to join the server, that's also down below. All the links are down below. All right. So getting back to this. So we've already talked about, we've already said this like 4 times now. Women rewrite history towards the end of the relationship. Why do they do this? And it comes down to, like you were saying, it's this, I like your placeholder word. They forget. And it's because it's partially that they forget. It's more that they've convinced themselves that what was good never was. This is that, right here in the, if you
second to last bullet point. Yep.
So yeah, she has convinced herself that she's been unhappy for a long time now. It's not that she's discrediting all of the past good of the relationship. They actually forget it ever existed. They've convinced themselves that it never was. It's it's the subjective reality we're going to talk about in a second, where women use their emotional state to kind of define reality. I think this is fair of both genders, but
oh yeah, no, everybody does this to a degree. I've often caught myself when it's like, oh yeah, that happened in my marriage. Of like, yeah, I'm literally forgetting a good example of when my wife didn't do this annoying behavior or whatever it is, and showed all this gratitude or whatever it is. So it's natural for you to forget, but I think one of the important reasons why it's super common, the way we're describing it in relationships and the way it works with women, is everything's filtered through their emotions and their ego. And for them to like, if you're super unattractive now, it's a big ego hit to recognize that they were ever attracted to you. So they literally, that's why I use the placeholder word of forget. They don't actually forget. They literally believe that it never happened.
I like what one of the guys was saying in the chat earlier was, when you're with them, you're the best they've ever had, blah, blah, blah. And then when you break up, oh no, you're the smallest bitch she's ever been with.
You're the crazy ex-boyfriend.
Yeah. That's that. Yeah. We're going to get into that. Next slide. Okay. The emotional state she is experiencing means that you've done something to create that state, intentionally or not. So this is where we get into the fallacies. Since she is sad, you've made her sad. That's the rationalization. Her subjective reality states that you've done something wrong to make her sad in this kind of example. So it doesn't matter what is rational or reasonable. She is sad, and she wouldn't be sad if there wasn't reasons to be sad. It's the post hoc rationalization fallacy. So you can go ahead and Google that online. I'll throw a description down below, or a link in the description later.
And you can substitute the emotion of sad for literally any emotion. Right.
Yeah.
And even positive ones, actually.
Exactly. And that's what I forgot to make a note of that before the show. You can use this to your gain, to your benefit. And this is what we talked about before. It's the roller coaster of feels.
Yep.
So when you know how to lead a woman through an emotional roller coaster ride, in a sense, just as a metaphor, you can have some very positive outcomes. You've just got to be able to take on that leadership role, in a sense, and give them those good feelings, and sometimes negative feelings, or
it's better to inspire strong feelings than none at all.
Strong feelings is probably the best way of wording that. Let's see. Now the negative stuff, gaslighting.
Oh yeah.
So, as the relationship starts to go sour for whatever reason, maybe you're responsible, maybe not. Could be something completely outside of your control. This is when you start seeing this revisionist history where, the never loved yous, or you were always this, always that. It's these binary statements. When they start coming out, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, the superlatives.
Always, never, another. What's that?
The superlatives.
Yeah. So yeah, what they reflect isn't a reality. Rather, they reflect her new reality based on her emotions. So, and for those who are wondering where we got this, it was from a subreddit thread, uh, and it makes a lot of sense. And like I said, we've all observed this to one degree or another. And he just kind of dove into the how and the why, and we're just kind of putting it forward and putting our spin on it because we have our own ideas and thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that you brought up that like everybody does this. There was a really cool article that was linked in the Discord this week, I think, and it was about ghosting and particularly when guys ghost women. And when it comes to ghosting, he talked about like this author of this post, and I'll find it and we can link it in the description. But the author of the post interestingly noted that like when he's on a date with a woman, he is trying to have a good time. He's trying to create intimacy, and that's kind of all about opening up and having some type of connection, right? Inspiring strong feelings. That thing that we just talked about. And if that's not going particularly well, if there's not really good chemistry or connection or whatever it is you want to call it, but they didn't really hit it off, he's not that interested, he will after the fact kind of go back. He described it as, I'm going to go back and take an objective look at whether I was really interested in you or not. That's subject to a little bit of post hoc rationalization, right? If at the end of the date you go home and it's like, I don't think this went anywhere, you're liable to some degree to rationalize, because everybody deals with ego.
Yep.
You're gonna rationalize that like, I don't really think there was any chemistry. I don't think we really hit it off. When really you might have been interested and you feel like you just got rejected, and you're trying to rationalize that.
Right? A little bit of ego protection.
Yep. Just cognitive dissonance, right? Like I'm attracted, but those are sour grapes type thing. So everybody's subject to do this, but in different ways.
Yep. And if you guys want to talk about the women's aspect from their perspective, we can do that sometime. We'll throw it over on the show geared towards women. Tonight, that's not what this is about. We're all about for the guys, with the guys, talking about the girls. All right. Next one, the switch. So the emotional state defines reality. This is getting back to the subjective versus objective. So when the relationship goes bad, nothing was ever good. Everything was based on a lie. There's this polarizing binary language. You're going to see this all the time. So like a light switch going from on to off, everything that the two of you had built up disappears into that off position as though it never existed. So, and I can't stress this enough. If you've ever experienced this firsthand, you know what it feels like to be on the guy and the receiving end of this. It's not fun. And it's so abrupt. It's really hard to get your head around. And it really just makes you wonder, like, did they ever love you? Did they ever this? Did they ever that? And they did in that moment. But this kind of gets back to how men love idealistically, women love opportunistically. We have absolutely different biological drives, and the way we go about forming relationships and in the way we go about that. Really good show on that. We just watched it the other day on was The Science of Sex Appeal on Discovery. And they go all into this with all the science and the research, and we're just kind of taking out the gist of it here tonight, just as we talk about this. So, but yeah, if you want all the science, it's a really good documentary, even though it's a bit dated now, even though it's only 10 years old.
So, it is a good documentary.
Yeah.
I had seen it before I'd even discovered any of this stuff, all the RP stuff, and it's still super enlightening.
Yep. I think we hit all this.
Well, I want to touch on one thing, actually. If we go back to the everything was based on a lie piece, this is why guys in particular are really worried about false rape allegations this day and age.
Whoops. What slide was that on?
Back one.
Back one more?
Nope. Forward 3, 2, 3. There we go. So the first
so it never existed. All right.
Yeah. So when the relationship goes bad, nothing was ever good and everything was based on a lie. This doesn't have to be in a relationship. This could be a sexual encounter that, like, a lot of this day and age, and I don't want to just completely dismiss, every potential rape allegation, but it's happened where women think of themselves as being sexually assaulted after they have what amounts to really just sex that they didn't want to have, essentially. And so that, for some people, that has a tendency to happen, and that post hoc rationalization is what we're talking about here. It is like a light switch. It goes from on to off.
Yep. There's psychological research that's been on this, not in this context, but with like UFO abductees and the 80s with the whole was it the Satanism thing? It's like implanted memories and false memories. Those can also play effect in that as well, where people convince themselves that something has happened, maybe as a rationalization, sometimes in the context of this, most certainly. So I can see how that would play out. You've got to be very careful in this kind of context. So not saying that that's always the case, but in some instances, I'm sure it is. It's just an odds thing. You're bound to have it happen sooner or later.
Yeah, it's certainly a factor, and it's certainly something to be considered there.
Yep. Next one. Now, this one I really like. I'm glad that he put this into the thread because it's really important. And for those that are listening at home, it's the relation to Briffault's law. So Briffault's law operates around this very principle, specifically corollary number 1. Past benefit does not provide for continued or future association. So what's that mean? Okay, you're married or you're in a long-term relationship. That doesn't mean you're entitled to sex, or you're not even entitled to a continued relationship. So it doesn't matter how many vacations you took her on, how many roses you bought, on your way home from work. None of that matters. It's always going to be, what's he done for me lately? That's the phrase.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. We talk about on MRP, there's a post of the mirror image of being alpha or beta, and Joe just described a lot of like what we call beta bucks behaviors of like, oh, you bought her flowers, you took her out to dinner, this, that, and the other thing. But the reality is, I've done that with my wife, and she doesn't remember those things as like, she doesn't just discredit those, like those are a special thing that's meaningful to her, and it's because of the way she sees me in that context in that moment, right?
Yep. And if things ever do, maybe not for you, or however, for people that have been in that situation where it was meaningful in the moment, but once the flip switches, they all stop being. It gets brain dumped.
If the context changes,
then
the history completely gets rewritten, right?
The history gets rewritten. Either they will brain dump it, or oh my God, he was always giving me flowers. How needy was he? I didn't even realize he was so needy until now. And the whole frame shifts. So, and this is,
I got an amazing story. Wife and I went out to dinner with a bunch of people from the gym this week, and this young woman, really pretty young woman, had a boyfriend, and she was describing to us how it was. Joe, you're gonna laugh at this. She was describing to us how it was an off week with her boyfriend.
Wait a minute. Is that what I think it means?
Yes. Yeah, literally. Yeah, it's an off week. And everybody at the table had that reaction that you had of like, wait, what? And I said, like a phone call, like you put a phone call on hold, and everybody cracked up laughing. I was like, no, literally, like that's what she's talking about here. And she talked about this guy who's been a friend for a long time. Sound familiar? And she had this guy, out for a date. We met him. My wife and I met him. Seemed like a nice young guy, but really timid. And she said, I just wasn't attracted to him. I couldn't make it work. And it was because on the ride home from this date where we all met him, that they went on, he was petting her hair. And he was like petting her hair, and she was like, I just couldn't at that point. I realized that was not going to do it. But that behavior would have been probably seen in a much different light if the guy actually had some decent frame or whatnot. He's super handsome. I mean, really, really athletic, really attractive guy. Just it's what seemed like absolutely no frame whatsoever, sadly.
No frame, no boldness to him.
Yeah, sadly, and not much game as well.
That'll do it too.
He was literal arm candy. I mean, he just stood there and looked pretty.
It happens.
Yeah. So anyway, just an example of that was something that struck her as really unattractive, and it's all about context, right?
Yep. And speaking of context, so the concepts of past benefit and continued association requires a consistent, objective reality where men and women can look back at the implicit and overt contracts in a relationship. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't really work that way. So the premise of the light switch is that women's reality is subjective. So yeah, you're going to have good luck with that. This is why overt contracts, implied contracts, they all go right out the window when that frame, that the mental frame flips like a switch. That's that rewriting of history, going from these were good things, now they're bad things. Or like I said before, they just don't even remember the good things that happened. And I don't know how this applies from the women's perspective, but from guys, it is like getting the rug pulled out from underneath you.
Yeah, it's very confusing when you talked about early on in the episode of like why did this happen, right? It's, men always in this situation want to know the why.
Yeah, and I think that's really important too, because like a lot of guys are going to go back and dissect things from a logical manner. Maybe women do this, maybe they don't. I don't know, but from a guy's perspective, we go back, we look at things, we try to be objective, like you said, and analyze, this is what went wrong right here. And they're going to try and pinpoint what the issue was and try and fix it. And I think guys really do need to do that. But where I see a lot of guys go wrong, and this doesn't really apply to this in a specific sense.
It's tangential though.
Yeah. So whenever you are trying to troubleshoot something that goes wrong in your life, in this case, relationships, maybe you're on a date or you're running game, you're talking to a girl, maybe you just did a cold approach. And something goes sideways and it blows up in your face. Mm-hmm. When you're going over this in your head in the future, don't keep doing the same thing. Try to anticipate, okay, this went wrong, so I'm going to do this now. It's A/B testing in your head. And you're going to visualize what you're going to do differently next time. If you keep running through your head what you did wrong over and over and over again, you're mentally rehearsing to keep making the same mistake. So you want to try and make the mental shift to what you're going to do next to have that mental preparation so you're ready to go. We've talked about this in the 100 series where you're going to do that preparation, that rehearsal. The competence builds confidence. Well, this is part of building competence. So if you're always mentally rehearsing or rehashing in your head what went wrong, you're just reinforcing what went wrong, and you're going to keep making those same mistakes. So focus, visualize on what you're going to do differently and trying to anticipate, like a game of chess. If this happens, I'm going to do this. If this happens, I'm going to do this, and kind of become a little bit more mentally nimble in that sense. Let's see. Any other comments or concerns? Or I see we don't have a lot of comments tonight.
They'll come toward the end of the stream like they did last week, probably.
Yep. Well, we are almost there.
What's interesting that you brought up in terms of the light switch effect, when you talk about breakups specifically and just that mental process of what happened or where is this relationship going wrong, it is posted a really interesting. He had a really interesting post, and the title is "They have neither interest nor input." And his point was, women have neither interest nor input in the type and manner of the relationship that they want. And I think I challenged him a little bit on those thoughts, but one of the interesting things that came out of that is he said, like, the missing piece of what he's trying to cover in this post is that women generally don't make relationship choices virtuously, meaning like the requisite skills and dispositions to attain like absolute platonic virtue, right? Like true excellence and happiness. That whole skill set's missing, was his point. I think that's interesting. He goes on to say, think of any breakup you've had. When you were initiating it or saw it coming, you thought about your boundaries, your principles, your morals, especially if you've ever broken up because you wanted some strange, or if a new relationship was forming, you consulted your whole code of ethics first.
Yep.
Now think about when the woman was the initiator. You know that whole process didn't happen.
Oh, yeah.
That's biology in the light switch effect, and that's it. It's just not how they're wired. Right.
A good example is that it's the emotional control of the subjective reality, where a good example of this is it just happened.
Oh,
it didn't just happen. You let go of all responsibility to give yourself permission to go do whatever you did.
You slipped and fell on it.
Yeah. So
it just happened.
That's a practical example of what we're talking about.
Totally.
The emotional kind of just takes control. It's almost like being drunk. Your decision-making skills go right out the window. I guess maybe that would be an interesting way of looking at that, where if you're a drunk man is like how women are all the time. I don't know. it's a funny thought process, right there.
It is a funny thought process. Probably an oversimplification, but I think one of the things that's most that you could probably draw a parallel to that's interesting is Rollo's War Brides concept and his whole.
Oh my God! Yeah, absolutely.
His whole blog post and writing on War Brides, which is, I mean, literally, in history, the women adapted, right? Women adapted to kind of, assimilate with whatever, conquering culture that they unfortunately had to kind of survive and be subject to, if that makes sense.
Yes. So for those that don't know what a war bride is, we kind of just hinted on it right there. When a conquering, conqueror comes in the city, conquering army, commander, general, whatever. Genghis Khan is the epitome of this. Dude, like 20% of China is a direct descendant of the guy. It's something ridiculous like that. Because he was the conqueror and he had all the concubines. Well, because if you didn't, he might slit your throat. So women just kind of wised up. Well, I better go along with this and make myself happy in doing so. And it's a nasty bit of business in the psychology that goes on in that. Mm-hmm. But what you talked about earlier, the flip of that is where you get these false accusations where they do hook up with a guy and then they regret it later and they convince themselves they weren't really into it when it happened. That's the polar opposite of what we're talking about.
Yep.
Where women that they convince themselves to go along with it because it's a lot better than the alternative of now this is really bad. So if you can kind of rationalize something being good when it really isn't, it makes it a lot easier to sustain and be involved in it. So, and you see the same thing in the military where people go along with really nasty shit when they shouldn't have, like World War II. So this isn't exclusively a female kind of concept, but we definitely see this throughout history with what are called war brides.
Yeah, well, it's exclusive to female sexuality is what we're talking about.
In that absolutely. Yeah. Well, so let's go ahead and move a bit further on here because we're gonna have something fun here.
I think so.
All right. I think Mike's got the button ready to go here.
Oh yeah.
Let's go.
Pew, pew, pew. There it is.
I should probably bring it up, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, so bro tip number 5. We actually got this from our community just this afternoon. So when she sends you a picture that's really hot, ask her to do a FaceTime with you or any kind of face-to-face comms because you're going to catch her. In a lot of cases, you're going to catch her without her makeup on. And here's a few examples. They weren't necessarily caught, but the point is, it happens.
Oh, yeah.
So you see the before and after. This is the effective makeup. And we've talked about this before over in the 100 series as well.
It's a big difference. Presentation matters.
Presentation matters. And guys, you can do the same thing. Just lose some weight, get a haircut, get colors that match your skin tone. And the big one is bad fit disease. Get rid of it.
Yeah.
Get clothes that fit you properly. I've been tugging in my shirt because this one I've actually working out. Things are tight and it's not fitting the way it used to. Mm-hmm. So I'm due to get some new clothes right now, actually.
Oh, isn't that the worst? Is when you start lifting and you start your physique starts to change and you have to get basically a whole new wardrobe wholesale.
Yeah, I gotta take all my suits back and get them altered again.
It's especially bad for guys that if you lose a lot of weight, then you got to just get new suits effectively. So if you spend a lot of money on those, you're screwed.
That's my concern is that I may have lost too much that they can't alter them. We'll see.
Well, a new suit's always a good investment, but to get back to the bro tip here, the idea is especially if you're considering really getting LTR status with a woman, right? Long-term relationship, you've got to see her with her makeup on at least once. Absolutely. And on the flip side, as a guy, dude, get a tan, exfoliate, take care of your skin, take care of your hair.
I call this just doing the basics.
The basics, really the basics.
Yeah. I think Richard Cooper calls it self-care. I don't like that term personally.
Whiten your teeth.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, man, it's so many simple things that guys could do.
Yeah. Just follow me on this. Doesn't self-care sound like jerking off? Am I the only one that thinks that's that mental image. I don't need that.
No, I look at self-care as like frame construction, like really go back and do the introspection, fix your poor mental models. That's when I think of self-care, that's what I think of. But yeah, I mean, you clearly, Joe clearly doesn't like the metrosexual concept, which is fine.
No, there's nothing wrong with metrosexual. I mean, I played that game once and before.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All right. No, it's just kind of funny. So getting back to the bro tip. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The whole concept of this, though, is if she's throwing really, really hot pictures your way, ask yourself why. Now, if you guys were doing this exchange, that's awesome. It could also be beta bait. What's beta bait? Well, beta bait is when they start throwing stuff your way, just kind of see, are you going to overcommit? Are you going to kind of overdo it? Are you thirsty is what it really means.
Yeah. Are you going to hand out a bunch of free attention and validation? And
you got it.
Just give up your self-respect.
Yep.
Without that making it a relational thing, right? It's not a mutual cycle of giving. If it's that.
Well, that and also tests for organic interest. So if she's doing all of this, throwing hot pictures your way, but she's not really looking like that right now, then it's a scam. She's just fishing for interest.
There's a really good point that we've never touched on. A lot of TRP never covers this, which is like really examining, because we talk about congruence all the time with Frame. Mm-hmm. We never talk about examining how congruent women are. Right. And Rollo talks about all the time of like, you have to, there's nothing better to vet for than genuine desire.
Yeah.
Like if that's how you find your ride or die woman. And he talks a ton about that. So I'm not going to cover it here, but if she's that, and if she's sending you hot pictures all the time, and if she looks hot all the time, and she's really into you all the time, then that's congruent, right? Like there's nothing wrong at all with that. And if she looks good with no makeup, and she looks really hot with makeup, then those are all green lights.
An extension of this is one of our users, one of our members of the community. He was doing a text exchange with a girl on one of these dating apps. I don't know if it was Bumble, Tinder, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And he goes for the number, and she's like, "Oh, I don't get my number out anymore, but here's my Instagram." Done. Ugh. Right there demonstrates that she's not interested. If she was interested for real, you would have got this. I don't usually do that, but ... Because these online systems are just buffers to keep guys at arm's reach so that they can fish, like we talked about before, getting that attention and validation. That's all it is.
For free.
It's for free. It's very, very rare that they will actually convert from being an online text buddy to something actually real. Mm-hmm. So you got to get around those buffers. It's go for something more direct and just kind of break through. And if you're getting resistance, then that tells you right there that she wasn't really interested. She just was interested in the attention, the validation,
and
the ego boosting.
This is platitudes, but Rollo is right when he says that women will break rules for alphas and they'll make rules for betas. And if she's saying, no, I'm only comfortable with you being on my Snapchat, then it's not a good look. She just wants your attention and validation, and she doesn't really want a meaningful connection with you.
Yep. Yeah, the worst thing you can do is become a text buddy, because all you're doing is friend zoning yourself, whether you realize it or not.
You're a time hoe at that point.
Yeah, you absolutely are. Well, I think we've gotten to the end of this. Again, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell. That helps us out. Drop comments down below. We're going to start from the top down to the bottom. Yeah. So, Daft Drunk. Yeah, it was funny. I posted that in the wrong chat earlier. Can you hear me? Whoops.
Did the by the way, did the video get hung on the bro tip, or
Nope.
Did it freeze?
I was just not. I hadn't kicked it over. That's all.
Got it. Just asleep at the wheel.
Yeah. Yep. So y'all are vibing. I don't know what he meant by that, but okay, cool.
Yeah, we're vibing. We're doing it.
Indeed. So Daniel was talking about ARK. They're my number one ETF. I've got all 5 of them in different allotments. ARK K, ARK W, I think are 35% each, and then the other 3 are 10% each, which is funny because ARK Q, I think that's their industrials one, is my best return right now. It's kind of weird. So they're doing something funky with industrial. I don't know. It's just games.
Yeah, that's wild.
To answer Daniel's question, when did you guys hear about ARK Invest? I heard about them about a year a little over a year ago. That was back when I was doing all my research, and I just it's like, nah, I'd rather do it myself. And then I saw them do like 111% in that 1 year, and I'm like, I'm not that good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I really looked into them and just, I'm all in. Let's see here. This is interesting. Guion Grassi. You guys think that the switch light effect occurs more often in younger women? So younger women versus older women. Now, I've talked about this before. I've dated from 19 to 44. All right. They're almost all the same. Okay. The only thing that really changes it in my experience, now this might ruffle some feathers, it's not maturity, it's baggage and the physical decline. Yeah, the maturity levels are pretty much consistent in my experience across the board. And I've dated a lot. It's it is what it is. So in that context, I just want to say really quick, I doubt it changes based on age. I doubt it.
No, I would agree. It's we use this all the time, right? All women are like that. But I think in reality, like you said, older women or women that have been, through a relationship or two or divorced or what have you, I think they're more likely to have, baggage is a good way to put it, right? But I think they're more likely to kind of be hyper aware of a negative context around a guy, right? Like they're going to notice red flags a lot more. Like they're more likely to notice red flags more quickly and have that switch flip. I think the other piece of it is, I lost it. I had my train of thought, but I lost it.
Well, I will say what you just kind of keyed in on right there, that older one will have a hair trigger on the switch. More so than the younger women.
I remember what I was going to say. Yeah, they also, but on the other hand, they also have fewer options.
Well, and that's why.
Yeah.
So here's an example. One of the women I dodged a bullet with, she was around, we must have been early to mid 30s. And within 6 months, so we dated like a couple of dates. That's it. And I can tell that she was right then and there. Once they get married, once they have a kid, like within the next year. And I'm like, nope, see ya. And I bounced.
Mm-hmm.
And within 6 months, she was knocked up with some dude who had neck tattoos and just got out of jail. And then 6 months after that, she was married to some other guy.
Whew. Yikes.
Yeah.
That's an American Horror Story.
Yeah. So don't be that guy. All right. Either one of them, man,
sure.
Train wreck. So that's the hair trigger though. So I pulled the trigger that time, but she,
Well,
point being is that when they are on
you did it for different reasons. You did it because it was a red flag, not because you forgot about the context of whatever happened.
Yeah, but the main takeaway here though is that compressed schedules can make them hyper aware and more likely to flip the switch. Really, they're just going to next you a lot faster if they're not getting what they want.
Yeah, they're on a branch swing.
Yeah.
Period.
Let's see here. When Rollo, this is Bagley 232. Good picture, dude. He's actually doing the work. He's at the gym. Awesome.
For sure. If that's you, well done.
Yep. When Rollo said there is no relationship equity, that was a game changer for me. I saw how the light switch effect happened in my last relationship.
Oh, this is such a good point to touch on. There are no points. There are no points. A lot of guys really fall into the way I've heard it described is like, things like respect and trust are built, right? But when you talk about attraction and desire, that you can't negotiate. That's not built. That is there, and it's there because you're attractive. Period. Yep. Right. So that's what we're talking about in terms of it flipping. But there's no this is why beta game doesn't work. This is why all that bullshit just doesn't work, is because 5 minutes of you having a weak frame or it being insecure, unattractive, or incongruent, she's gonna forget all that stuff.
Yeah, we're talking about like chore play. That shit's fake. I mean, it might have a temporary effect, but in long term, it doesn't make it. It doesn't matter.
Getting your shit done because you're getting your shit done has an effect for sure. But chore play you're gonna have a bad time for sure.
Yeah, it's a short-term solution to a long-term problem.
Yeah, at best.
At best, yeah. Let's see. Another reason. Oh, let's skip one here. Thirsty Wraith. That's why fat guys should keep their clothes for when they end up jacked.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
as you go through, and that depends on how fat you started. If you were some people are just so big, they're never going to get that big if they lift.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're moderate, if you're just overweight, husky, you slim down, then you get jacked. As far as dimensions go, you may end up being where you started, but you're going to be way healthier if you do that. And,
you're probably going to need to get a couple new pairs of pants and maybe take in your sport coat or whatever it is. But for most guys, like you don't have a ton of weight to lose.
Well, I would argue against that now.
Really?
You say most guys not having a lot of weight to lose?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 40% is now obese and another 30% is overweight. Oof. So you're like 70% are way over there.
Yeah, and that's probably at least 20, 30 pounds, and that's a few pant sizes for sure.
Yeah. I'm guilty as charged. I have scaled down from technically obese to overweight.
Oh yeah.
But
at one point I was 30 pounds heavier than I am right now. So I get it.
Yeah. I think this time next year we'll see a big difference. I think if you go back to the earlier shows too, it might see a difference. We'll see.
Yeah,
I know I plumped up during the lockdown for a while.
Did you?
Oh shit, yeah, dude.
I gained a couple pounds, and then we were on that challenge, and I just went crazy and cut and lost like 12 pounds, and it's been a big impact health wise. So all that's been going well. But yeah, I recommend when it comes to the clothes thing, like keep them for a while, right? Keep them for a year. If you can put some tailoring into it, like absolutely, make the most out of what you got, especially if you've invested money into a piece, before. Otherwise, I mean, after about a year or so, just if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. If you can't fix it with a tailor, you can't fix it. Just toss it out, donate it, give it to a friend.
Yeah. Donations, great tax deduction. Look around. There's options.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Thirsty Wraith had another question here, or another comment. Another reason why the light switch effect exists, he suspects, is because evolution can't afford to gamble on a man that grew weak and potentially let the family die. That's fair. Yeah.
That's real talk.
Yeah. This is getting into the evolution aspect that we talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how much this just comes down to instinct.
Evolutionary biology drives a lot.
Attraction is not a choice. You cannot negotiate attraction is the other side of that. So it stands to reason that when guys let themselves go for whatever in one way, shape, or form, could be physically, could be mentally being bad frame, or a lack of boundaries, that the women will find a way. Life will find a way. Women will find a way to replace you in some manner. Could be cuckolding, where they go out and get the Chad to knock them up, and then they have you raise the kid without you knowing. In some cases, guys actually knowing, and they still do it. Playing somebody else's save game. I never understood that. So,
more commonly, it's just their branch swing into somebody else.
Yeah, that's the more practical aspect we're going to see.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very rare in my experience to see women that have options dump a guy and then not move to somebody else.
Oh yeah.
Usually, what we talk about branch swinging, they've already got another guy they're interested in. They will dump the dude and then pivot to the other guy. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't.
Oh yeah.
We talked about that, I think, 1 or 2 weeks ago with Tommy Lahren. The theory crafting with that
happens all the time. And one that's not theory crafting is Heather Musa. Actually, I don't know if you follow her on her Instagram or on. So she's on. I watch Selling Sunset, and she's on that. But Tarek Musa is her fiance. I think they're either engaged or married now. But regardless, so she's on this TV show. She's dating a hockey player in Europe, and she's thinking like, I don't know, this is a long-term relationship. Like he's gotten signed professionally to a Norwegian hockey club, and he's all the way over there, right? Like, what good is an alpha? This is why Rollo says long-term relationships don't work. I would agree. He's all the way over there in Europe, and she's like, how am I going to make this work? Guess what? All of a sudden, runs into this guy who's divorced, and he all of a sudden, he and her all of a sudden are involved together, and really quickly got engaged and married because that's what they wanted. And I mean, I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying that this phenomenon is super common. It's super common, and it's put out there in society as like, oh well, somebody just kind of that connection didn't work or whatnot. And if you dig deeper into it, it's like, of course it didn't work. It's a long-term relationship.
You just touched on something right there, that immediacy, where tell me this sounds familiar. Guy meets girl. Guy dates girl for a long time. Guy takes forever for them to ever have sex, if they ever do. Then they break up, and then like a week later, she's already having sex with the next guy. Does that sound familiar? It should, because it happens all the time. Why? It's exactly what we're talking about here, where they string along one guy. String along might not be the right word, but that's what happens.
Well, yeah, there's no attraction or desire. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, it kind of talks about what you were talking about before, where roles for certain guys, breaking roles for others. But it also kind of piggybacks on what you just said, where she was with this guy long term, they were doing their thing, long distance, breaks it off with him, and then immediately is with the next guy and has escalated to even a higher level of relationship than she was with the guy previous.
Super high commitment, and all of her friends are like, "What? This is super fast," and it's not
super fast,
surprising to her at all. She's like, "This is what we're doing. Don't judge. We're jumping into this thing head first." So it's super common, and I'm not sitting here shooting holes in it. I'm just saying, like, analyze the why as to why that's happening.
And everything we've talked about tonight, it all kind of funnels down into what we just talked about. We got one more comment here. So this kind of understanding helps you not feel bitter about it when you understand what is driving this. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago with the
anger phase.
Yeah, the five. I want to say the 5 layers.
The 5 stages.
This isn't a damn burrito, okay? I'm hungry. My Chipotle's sitting right outside.
I know, right? That 7-layer salad's just right off camera.
Yeah.
So
I think
5 stages.
The 5 stages. Yeah, the 5 layers of life here. 5 stages. I don't know if you can hear my stomach's growling, man. It's like, oh, stop.
I think it's, to the question, I think it's super true. I think evolutionary biology is what it is. You can't be angry at anybody for it. And I think all the modern psychological research shows that your animal brain is driving, man, and your higher cognitive functions are just justifying most of that stuff. So that's kind of my takeaway for this question. I love the questions. They were kind of, fewer questions this evening, but really relevant.
Yeah. I love that we're just basically chimps with a supercharger strapped to our brain.
That's all I am.
Yep.
Just a chimpanzee.
Oh man, I got some Photoshop to do tonight.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna call it there. Head on over to the Discord. We'll be there for a little while for the after show. Yeah, it's been fun. I like doing these. If you guys want to see specific what do you call it, topics, please post in the comments. Go to Discord. Throw them into the feedback channel. Let us know. He's just here for the hat guy. Well, which one you got? Yeah.
Kiss the homies goodnight. We both appreciate you.
Roger that. All right, guys. So stay safe. Have fun. We'll see you next time.